Have you ever looked at your design work and thought, I'm not good enough to charge for this? Or maybe you've landed a big client and immediately felt that pit in your stomach, wondering when they'll figure out that you're not as talented as they think you are. If so, you're not alone. And today, we're going to talk about something that affects roughly 70% of creative professionals: imposter syndrome. Hey there, I'm Mark Decote, and you're listening to Resourceful Designer, the podcast that helps you get back to what you do best, designing. Now, I received an email last week from a podcast listener, and she's a young designer that unfortunately just got laid off from her position. It was a downsized creative agency, and they did away with her position. And she wanted to ask me some questions, specifically about episode 346 of the podcast, about why you should work for someone else before going freelance. Well, I'm not going to get into our conversation, but I do want to touch on something I noticed in our back and forth. And that's her lack of confidence in herself and her abilities as a designer. I started to see a pattern that I identified as imposter syndrome, which I did point out to her. Now, we're still exchanging emails back and forth, working through her questions and all, but that revelation got me thinking that this would be a good topic to bring back to the podcast. Now, yes, I did talk about imposter syndrome back on episode 254, but that was a few years ago, so I think it's time to discuss it again. And this time I have a bunch of quotes that I want to share with you today. So even if you don't believe you suffer from this frustrating condition, I think it's still worth listening to. So let's dive in to what imposter syndrome really is and how it specifically affects us as designers. So imposter syndrome is that nagging voice that tells you that you're a fraud, that your success is just pure luck, and that someday everyone will figure out that you don't actually belong in this industry. And let me tell you, some of the most successful people in their fields experience this. We're talking about award-winning professionals who still question their abilities. And guess what? If they feel this way, it's perfectly normal that you do too. I mean, if even people like Academy Award winner Tom Hanks experiences these feelings, then there must be something to it. Let me share what he had to say.
And that's, I think, when you think you're laying in bed or you get up and you're in the shower in the morning, you think, well, it's true. I'm a fraud. I'm a cheat and I'm a fraud, but I'm just going to have to accept that in myself.
Now, what I find so fascinating is how universal these feelings are across different creative fields. No matter how much talent you have, you still feel nervous about taking on a new project or taking on a new client. Take Eddie Van Halen, for example. He's one of the greatest guitarists of all time and the namesake for the band Van Halen. Well, here's what he had to say about going on stage. And you got to remember, this is after years and years and years of performing.
We both get so nervous. Oakland,
before we went on, I hurled, I blew lunch before we went on. That's how nervous I get, still.
Now, yes, Eddie is a musician, but even in the design world, we often feel like we're not good enough or that our success is just luck. Billie Eilish, who's won several Grammy Awards, describes this feeling perfectly.
Imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome? Yeah, I feel like sometimes I'm an imposter, like I'm like pretending to be a celebrity sometimes.
I know a little bit about this. I was talking to a woman, a very successful woman in television many, many years ago, and she and I acknowledged that we both had the sensation that, we're here by mistake, and soon someone will say, time to go.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I feel like I somehow managed to pretend that I was a celebrity for so long that I became one.
Right.
And later in the interview, Dave asked her about all the awards that she had won.
You win 5 the first year. Do I have the math right?
Yep.
And then 2 the next year.
Yeah.
And at this point, you're what, 17?
18.
Okay, so the world of grown-up professional music is on you and awarding you. What does that do to a kid, for God's sake?
You want to know something? What it does is it makes me, and this is not an insult to the award shows and the awards themselves, but what it does to a kid is makes a kid go, oh, so these awards aren't, if they're giving them to me, then they're obviously not that valuable.
That's the imposter syndrome, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, if celebrities like these experience imposter syndrome, then it's perfectly reasonable for people like us, you and me, to do so as well. Now, we may not be getting on stage or getting in front of a camera, but there are still plenty of opportunities for it to rear up for us. For designers, imposter syndrome often shows up in different ways, such as undercharging for your work because you don't feel, quote unquote, experienced enough. Is that you? I know many designers who don't charge enough for their work because they don't think they deserve it. How about hesitating to show your portfolio to potential clients because you're unsure how they'll perceive it? Are they going to look at it and realize that, oh, no, this is not what we want. Look how cheap and amateurish the stuff is. Many designers feel that way about their own work. What about constantly comparing your work to other designers? Now, I know you're lying to yourself if you say you've never done this before. We all have. I do it on a regular basis. Anytime I see another designer's work, I look at it and compare it to my abilities, my skills. And sometimes I go like, wow, why couldn't I think of that? Or why have I never designed something like that? And it eats at you. What about being afraid to take on challenging projects? Have you ever had a client ask you to do a certain project and you're like, ooh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have the skill. I don't know if I have the ability. That feeling can really impede your progress. Even overworking yourself just to prove that you're worth what people perceive. Aquafina, who was discovered as a rapper on YouTube, but you may know her as the comedic relief on movies such as Ocean's 8 or Crazy Rich Asians. Well, she offers some valuable perspective on this exact topic.
I think when you're new and you're entering this industry, it's hard to validate if you're doing a good job or not, or if what am I doing? Am I flailing? Everyone really goes through that, and you could be the most kind of seasoned actress that you'll still go through bouts of insecurity. You'll still go through bouts of oh my God, is that, what am I doing? During Ocean's 8, I remember there was this one scene that I was especially very nervous about. And Anne Hathaway kind of was come here, let me talk to you. And I had just met her at this point. And she kind of gave me the rundown of hey, everyone goes through this, you're gonna be fine, Right. You go ahead. Breathe. The insecurities, the nervousness, it'll never really go away. But I think a healthy amount of imposter syndrome is always good. I think I think that a very unhealthy amount is one that deters you from working, from doing your job, You never learn from your successes. You learn from your failures, right? With that being said, it's what did I do for me to end up here? You have to have a little bit of confidence in those situations to know that you are there for a reason. And then also if you do work hard, you have to know that when you work hard, you're working hard, right? And that you're not just kind of sitting there watching time fly by. You're working hard and you care. I think that for me, it was always about finding something that I cared about. I was never good at anything else, And I still don't know if I'm good at this, but I do know that I care about it more than anything.
And then later in the interview, they bring it back around again to imposter syndrome.
When you skip over steps, I think that can throw some people off.
Well, it gives you imposter syndrome. And It makes you question, did I earn being here? Did I pay my dues?
How does that imposter syndrome manifest? Among other cast members when you walk into set?
What's interesting is that I've had conversations with very famous actors and actresses that they know what imposter syndrome is because they go through it too. Whether or not they were just starting or they were already established, everyone goes through imposter syndrome. And I was taught what that was because I didn't know what that was. So I remember describing it to someone and I was I don't know, I just feel like I shouldn't be here or I didn't earn it. And I just feel like they don't know, and you're describing imposter syndrome. And then I looked it up. I think it was Annie Letterman, this other comedian that I did Girl Code with. She was the one that told me what imposter syndrome was. And I Googled it, and I was this is what I have right now. This is how I'm dealing with the pressure. It's horrifying. This is what it is. So I think, especially in this industry, when you see so many people just gunning for the same thing, waiting for their break despite how talented they are, it really makes you think why me? Why not this other person when she could have done better or, And he was funny because I was just listening to Henry Golding, the star of Crazy Rich Asians, who was talking about this. When he was first approached by it, he was like, well, that's not me. Why me? Why couldn't there was someone else out there that was meant to do this? He said that last night. So I really connected with that. Yeah.
Now take what she just said and insert yourself as a designer in her place. Can you relate to her words? I know I can. Now, imposter syndrome is especially prevalent if you're a member of a minority group. Now, have a listen as former First Lady Michelle Obama addresses this issue perfectly.
This imposter syndrome, does everybody know what we're talking about when we say imposter? It's like,
I don't really know that term.
Well, particularly for minorities, there's this feeling like because you've been told that you're not good enough, that when you're in a room, you're wondering, well, how did I get here if I've been told I'm not good enough? Women feel it oftentimes because society says you shouldn't be doing that, right? So you feel like an imposter in your own life. You feel like, especially if you've achieved success or you're in rooms that you're not supposed to be in because society has told you that, you think maybe somebody's going to discover that I shouldn't be here, right? That's imposter syndrome. Does that make sense?
It sure does.
So what I tell people is, okay, and all I can do is tell you this because imposter syndrome it's a thing in your head. And, it's just like self-confidence. It's just like, it's like any internal characteristic. Much of it is what you practice telling yourself. And if you've heard that you're not good enough, that's what you're practicing. I'm just here to tell you it is not true. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you didn't belong here. And I also have the advantage of, and I say this not with any level of arrogance or lack of humility, but I have been at so many powerful tables now, right? I've been at, I've worked in every sector. I've been a lawyer at a big law firm. I've worked at an academic university, been associate dean. I've been the vice president in community development at a hospital. I've been, I run a nonprofit organization. I have worked in the government. I worked with the mayor in the city of Chicago. I worked in the Department of Planning and Development. I was First Lady of the United States of America. I've seen these seats. I've served on corporate boards. I've done it, not all, but I've done a lot. And I'm just telling you, there are a lot of people who don't belong there. And every table, I thought it was me. And after a little bit, I was like, nope, it's him. It's this guy who's sitting here talking
but they
all
act
the time.
so well. They act like they belong.
That's because they've been told they belong there. They don't. But there's a presumption. That's what I'm saying. It's in his head too. He's like, I belong here. And I'm like, no, you don't. So all I can tell you is that the person sitting next to you was told, based on nothing, that he belongs there. And you were told that you weren't. Both things are wrong, oftentimes. So what I had to learn to do for myself was being, age helps you with imposter syndrome. So I'm 55 now, and I've seen it. I've been waiting to be as bad as people told me I would be, I've been waiting for when I was going to fall and mess up and fail. I've been waiting because that's what they said. I didn't belong at Princeton, right? I applied to Princeton University. My college counselor said, that's school's too much for you. Well, I applied anyway. I got in. I was waiting for it to be hard and for everybody else to be so much smarter. They weren't. They were just told that they belong there. Same thing was true when I applied to Harvard Law School. Maybe I shouldn't be there. Got there. Nope. They're not any smarter than me. So with all the practice of just going into the room that you weren't supposed to be in and being there and occupying those seats and just doing you and knowing that your thoughts are just as relevant, your experiences are just as important, your insight is just as valuable, so that you will share it and use it and practice being there. That's the work you have to do if you feel like an imposter, because he isn't giving up his seat easily. He isn't going to just say, oh, I understand you don't feel like you belong here. Well, let me make room for you and sit you down and tell you the things you need to hear. They're not going to do that for you because a lot of times they don't even want you there, even when they need you there. So you can't count on somebody else giving you the self-confidence. That's not how we work, you know? And that's why you all are important, because you're not going to do that for some kid in your life. You're going to make sure that they never feel like an imposter. You're going to help them practice a different set of messages so they aren't sitting here wondering where they belong in places where we need them. We need women and diverse minds and people who think differently and have different religious beliefs, because truth and the right answer comes from diversity of experiences, you know? You're needed at those tables. So you can't sit there wondering whether you belong, because you'll waste your time in those seats and you'll hold your voice back and you won't be able to make change because you're waiting for somebody to tell you that you belong. I'm telling you, you belong. Practice a different set of messages.
Thank you for saying that. So important.
Wasn't that powerful? I'm not part of any minority groups that she mentioned. Maybe you are, and I hope whatever she said inspires you. But I know, even though I'm not, it inspired me. Have you watched the television show Ted Lasso? If not, you really should. It's one of my favorite shows that's come along in a long time. Well, here's what Jason Sudeikis, Ted Lasso himself, felt as a writer for Saturday Night Live. Perhaps you experienced something similar when you're preparing for a client presentation.
Have you ever had a job that you weren't qualified for, but did you kind of just wing it or anything of that sort?
Yeah, I was on Saturday Night Live for 10 years. Yeah. I mean, not only was it, did I have it, but everybody was aware that I had it and got to watch me do that. So, yeah. But no, I definitely felt that when I got hired as a writer at SNL, because, at that point I'd been working, trying to figure out how to write for myself for, about 10 years at that point. And had barely scratched that, and then I got hired there to write for everybody, and everybody else in 2003, and I definitely suffered from what I think is affectionately known as imposter syndrome, to the point where I didn't even unpack the boxes in my tiny little apartment because I thought they were going to sniff me out immediately and be like, "Hey, hit the bricks." Like if Larry David, couldn't hold a job there, how the hell am I going to, hold a job there? But, I was able to trick them week after week and 10 years later.
Now, one of the side effects of imposter syndrome is fear. The fear that your designs are not good enough. The fear that you can't deliver on your promises to your clients. The fear that clients will discover that you're not as talented as you're letting on. And fear is a tough one to deal with. Here's what David Tennant, the 10th, and I must say my favorite Doctor Who, has to say about fear.
Fear ever a motivator?
Oh, fear motivates everything I do at all times.
Is that true?
A constant engine, yeah.
So when I say that, what's the picture that comes to your mind?
I think it's just that sense that you're always waiting to be found out, that you're always, for me, that's what being an actor is about, sort of going, on one level, this is all a bit silly, and I can't really believe I'm getting away with this. And at some point, someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and go, come on, you've had your fun. Move on. There's some people who can actually do this. There's some proper actors in the world. Stop pretending and move on. You're a little wee nyaff from Paisley. You don't really get to do this.
It's funny that even at this place in your career that voice is still there.
Well, because there are no amount of good reviews that won't make you see the one bad one. And the one bad one is the one that will somehow resonate with you. You'll
be like, keenly. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's the truth. All these people who say I'm great, they don't know.
Right.
But I say that like it's a bad thing. And obviously on some level it probably is quite negative, but I don't hate it. I do see that. I think that there's an engine to that that's quite useful.
Have you seen yourself in anything any of these people have said? I know they're actors and musicians, but the parallels are the same. Earlier, I played a quote from Eddie Van Halen. Well, here's what his son, Wolfgang Van Halen, has to say on the topic of talent and imposter syndrome.
Do you think you're a prodigy, like your father, like your uncle? I mean, do you think that I mean, it sounds to me kind of magical that you can play every instrument and you can play every song at that young of an age. It's almost, do you ever think it's in the blood?
Sure.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think very highly of myself. I have horrible self-esteem and terrible anxiety. So I'm never one to give myself credit in anything. But, standing back, it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. You can play a lot of shit.
What do you mean you have low self-esteem? In the sense that if I could play the way you play all the Van Halen repertoire, and then make an album and play every instrument, I would think you'd be a little bit full of yourself.
I guess on paper I should be, but I'm not.
And you say you suffer from this. Growing up the son of two famous parents, did you ever get help? Did you ever talk to a professional psychiatrist? I'm always curious about this.
It was only recently, maybe the past 5 or 6 years, that I went to therapy for a good 5 years and, got the tools I needed. And now I can kind of deal with shit on my own. But yeah, that's how my dad was. He was the most anxious person always. That's why he drank, but that's how he would kind of hide it. He was super anxious. That's why when he was sober, it kind of took me to focus him and harness his anxious energy.
Yeah, you're right. I guess all the drinking is and it's hard for us to believe that someone who's such a master of something would have any problems whatsoever.
That's powerful stuff. Now, as creative people, we designers experience these same feelings. Maybe even more so, since our designs, the deliverables that we give to our clients, can actually affect the outcome of individuals and companies. If a singer messes up or does something, all it means is somebody had a bad concert to go to. If we mess up, it can actually affect the bottom line of another company. And that's scary. But you've also got to think that you can affect it in a positive way as well. I've done this many times over the years where my designs, either logos, branding, peripherals, websites, whatever it is, have helped a business grow. And that's a wonderful feeling. And no matter how many of those you experience in your career, there's still always that little nagging doubt of imposter syndrome that, really you're not as good as people think you are. I'll let you in on a little secret. This here is episode 350 of Resourceful Designer. And yet, every time I sit down to create a new episode, I wonder, why would anybody want to learn from me? Who am I to teach you how to start, run, and grow a design business? I mean, I'm not super rich from my designs. I haven't designed any world-renowned logos or websites. I don't work on 6 or 7-figure design projects. I'm just a designer with a microphone who thought, it would be fun to share what I've learned over the years. And if I help you or maybe another designer with this content that I put out, then I've succeeded. But it doesn't eliminate that feeling that, why would you want to listen to me? And yet, here you are. Now, I think this last quote that I'm going to share with you sums it up best. This is the amazing actress, Viola Davis, on how to embrace imposter syndrome. And that you don't have to be famous or super talented to be successful. You just have to keep working.
Awards, experience, Tonys, and this imposter syndrome still there, and you're saying it's healthy.
I don't know if it's healthy or not. I'm just saying that it's something that I recognize in all the artists I've worked with. It's in all of them. It's only the people, social media, that says, when you walk onto a set, you got to know who you are. You telling me you have the imposter syndrome? That means you got to go into therapy and you got to just find out. You got to get some more confidence. It's not about confidence. It's about that feeling of always feeling you're in process and that you could be better. There are so many people now who say, listen, when I was 19, 20 and I started my career, I wouldn't do A, B, C, or D. And I told my agents, unless you get me a great role, I'm not going to get out of bed. I'll stay home and eat ramen noodles. I have to say, 99.9% of the artists I know do not say that. They just take the role. And I'll tell you why. They take the role because every role is an opportunity to be better. It's another opportunity to learn your craft. And let me tell you something. You're learning your craft more with crappy material than you are with great material. That's number one. Number two, A lot of artists will take the role because there are very few roles out there for artists. It's a 95% unemployment rate where only 0.04% of actors are famous. You're going to take the role, especially you got 2 kids at home that need health care and then you have to pay the rent. It is a business about deprivation. And yet there is a pervasive narrative going on out there, which is about being a famous actor, not an actor. And so when an actor speaks and it's diametrically opposed to that famous actor speech, then it's like someone's telling a lie. All I'm saying is that I know what the actor language is because I've been doing it too long. In every incarnation, I've done regional theater, I've done off-Broadway, I've done Broadway. I have rode a bus one way for 4 hours just to get to a play in a church basement in Newton, Massachusetts. So I know the language of the artist. And the language of the artist is someone's going to find me out. I may not be as great as people think I am.
It's classic imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
They're going to find me out.
And anybody who even wants to be great has that. Anybody, any filmmaker, any writer, any actor. But what it does is, of course, you have to have a healthy sort of approach to it. You have to recognize it for what it is. You have to keep it in its place. But what it does on a healthy level, it keeps you humble and it keeps you working.
Now, I know I didn't have much to say in this episode. I let the quotes speak for themselves. I intended this to be more of an inspirational episode to show you that those feelings that you may have of not being good enough are perfectly normal. As I said at the beginning, 70% of people go through this at some point. But I will tell you something. It's much easier to deal with imposter syndrome when you can identify it in yourself. Now, the good news is there are some practical ways to combat these feelings of imposter syndrome. 1, you can document your wins. Keep a folder of client testimonials, successful projects, and especially positive feedback. And anytime that imposter syndrome hits, review these concrete examples of your impact, what you are contributing to your clients. I do this. I have a folder full of testimonials. I mentioned in a previous episode that I ask for testimonials from a client after every single project. And even though I don't use them, most of them, I keep them all in a folder, organized, and I can go back at any time and read them. And that is powerful stuff. It tells you that what you're doing is making a difference. 2, you could reframe your thoughts. Instead of, I don't know enough, try, I'm continuously learning and growing. Every designer, even the ones you admire, started somewhere. And I guarantee, no matter how talented or how successful they are all still learning. And 3, focus on service. Remember, this is not about being the world's best designer. It's about solving problems for your clients. And when you shift focus from yourself to how you can help others, the pressure often lifts. Are there better designers that are more suited for the projects you're working on? Probably, but you're the one the client hired. Embrace that. Now, just quickly before I wrap up, I just want to mention that if you're looking for any tools or resources to help you to streamline and grow your design business, head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/resources, where I have a list of the tools and the services that I personally use to run my own design business. So have a look to see if there's anything there that can help you. Now, I want you, as I end this episode, to remember this. Imposter syndrome isn't a sign of weakness. It's often a sign that you're pushing yourself to grow. Every project you complete, every challenge you overcome, adds to your experience. Your clients hire you because they see value in what you do, even if sometimes you struggle to see it yourself. You've heard it from all these famous people that you would consider highly successful. And yet, many of them, if not most of them, experience imposter syndrome at some point. So remember that. You are not a fraud. The only reason you're feeling the way you're feeling is because you're still learning and you're still growing. And that is a wonderful thing. So that's it for me in this episode. I am Mark DeCote, reminding you that you belong in this industry and you have something unique that you can offer. So keep designing, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Resourceful Designer. Stay creative. And we're continuing with another intro from Wayne Henderson of MediaVoiceovers.com. And this is true. I don't know how I would live without this software.
And now your host, who tracks his entire life in Evernote, Mark DeCote.